The tunnels I discovered beneath Gene Hackman's mansion that day filled me with a terror I can't fully describe. But what came afterward, what I learned, made it so much worse. I've never told anyone about what I experienced, but if you're listening to this, you deserve to know the truth. I had been invited to Gene Hackman's estate, a sprawling property known for its quiet elegance and the warmth of its owner. Gene was admired for his genuine kindness and a public persona that seemed almost too perfect. Yet, as I walked through the gates and along the manicured lawns, I felt an indefinable tension in the air, a subtle, unsettling feeling I couldn't shake. Gene Hackman, despite his fame, had always been a man of quiet dignity. I remembered our brief conversation from a previous visit. He had smiled warmly, exuding an ease that put everyone at ease. But that day, I noticed a flicker of unease in his eyes, a fleeting look I dismissed as a momentary distraction. Perhaps he was preoccupied, I thought. Even the most admirable figures have their private battles. As I wandered the estate's long corridors, I found myself drawn to a part of the mansion I had never explored before, a narrow, less frequented hallway lined with portraits of a younger Gene. Their eyes seemed to follow me, their expression stoic yet laden with unspoken emotion. The silence was broken only by the soft echo of my footsteps on the polished floor. At first, I attributed the unease to the grandeur and history of the place. But as I ventured further, small details began to disturb my calm. There were artifacts that didn't quite belong: a small brass key left on a pedestal, a faded photograph tucked behind a heavy drapery, and cryptic notes scrawled on scraps of paper, hinting at secret meetings. Each detail felt deliberate, like pieces of a puzzle begging to be solved. What was Gene hiding? My curiosity led me to the library, a vast room filled with dusty volumes and personal mementos. In a quiet corner, behind a row of old leather-bound books, I found something that would change everything: a narrow, almost imperceptible door set into the wall. It was unassuming, as if designed to be overlooked. My heart pounded as I touched the cool metal handle. There was an odd vibration, a faint hum that resonated through my fingers. I hesitated only for a moment before pushing the door open. Beyond it lay a steep set of stone steps descending into darkness. The air was cooler, damp with a scent of earth and time. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to experience, and stepped into the unknown. The staircase led me into a narrow subterranean corridor carved from old stone. My flashlight revealed faded markings etched into the walls, cryptic symbols and dates that hinted at a long-forgotten history. Every step took me deeper into a past that Gene Hackman, the public figure we all admired, had seemingly buried beneath his polished exterior. The tunnel was a labyrinth. At first, it was a single straight passage, but soon it branched into smaller corridors. I could feel the weight of the secrets these walls held. The atmosphere was oppressive, yet there was a strange allure that compelled me to keep moving forward. I noted every detail: the slick stone walls, the irregular cobblestone underfoot, the distant sound of dripping water that added to the desolation. In a small chamber off one of the tunnels, I found a wooden table covered in dust. On it were several items that sent shivers down my spine: a bundle of yellow documents tied with a frayed ribbon, an old leather diary, and faded photographs. I picked up one of the documents. The handwriting was meticulous but hurried, hinting at secret meetings and dangerous liaisons. The diary was filled with intimate details of a man who had led a double life: meetings in hidden locations, cryptic conversations, and expressions of regret that suggested a man tormented by his own secrets. The photographs were equally haunting. One showed a younger Gene, his face filled with determination. Another depicted him alongside individuals whose identities were obscured by time, their expressions stern and secretive. Handwritten notes on the backs of the photos referenced dates and events unknown to the public. What had led such a celebrated man to retreat into this underground world? Every new discovery deepened the mystery. The tunnel seemed to whisper of impending doom, a slow-burning tension that was both captivating and unsettling. In one narrow passage, I found a small alcove with more documents stashed away. These papers hinted at a reckoning, unfinished business, and the fall of a giant. My pulse quickened as I pieced together the fragments of this hidden narrative. Each artifact felt like a warning, a harbinger of the tragedy that was soon to befall Gene Hackman. I spent hours moving from one room to another, cataloging every piece of evidence. The deeper I went, the more Gene's pristine public image fractured in my mind. He was not just the genial actor we all knew. There was a complexity, a shadowy past that loomed over every elegant portrait and polite smile I had once taken for granted. In a small vaulted chamber at the end of one of the longest tunnels, I found something that truly shook me: a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, bearing Gene Hackman's handwritten name. My hands trembled as I broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. It was addressed to him, written in a careful looping script that spoke of deep regret and unresolved sorrow. The letter detailed a betrayal, a decision made in desperation, and a promise that would haunt him for the rest of his days. I read the words over and over, each sentence a nail in the coffin of the public image I had once revered. This was no mere relic of a bygone era, it was a confession, a private admission of guilt and sorrow that had been buried beneath layers of success and respectability. The tunnels were not just physical passages. They were conduits to a darker, more complicated history. Gene Hackman, the beloved actor, had once been embroiled in events as dangerous as they were tragic. As I retraced my steps through the winding corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. There was an undeniable urgency in the silence, a sense that something terrible was imminent. The letters, the documents, and the personal mementos all pointed to a slow-burning tragedy that had been building over the years. In one of the final chambers, I discovered a faded calendar marked with a date that sent a chill down my spine, a date only a few days away from when I had first set foot on the estate. I spent a restless hour in that chamber, trying to piece together the timeline and the implications of what I had learned. It was then that I recalled a conversation I had overheard during a previous visit, a hushed exchange between estate staff about unfinished business and a reckoning no one could stop. At the time, I dismissed it as idle gossip, but now those words took on a new, ominous meaning. Could it be that Gene Hackman's public serenity was merely a mask for a deep internal conflict, a conflict that would ultimately lead to his demise? I left the tunnels with my mind reeling. The world above seemed unchanged, a calm, sunny afternoon that belied the dark secrets I had unearthed below. But I knew better. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, a gnawing certainty that what I had discovered would soon upend everything I thought I knew about the man I once admired. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every moment of my descent into those secret tunnels. The images of the cryptic documents, the haunting photographs, and the letter filled my mind. I felt as if I had become part of Gene Hackman's hidden world, a world of regrets and unspoken tragedies. In the silence of my room, I found myself whispering apologies to a man I had only known through the public lens, unaware of the profound sorrow that had driven him to conceal such a dark chapter of his life. The following morning, I returned to the estate, not out of a desire for closure, but because I needed to see if there was any explanation for the revelations I had uncovered. The estate, bathed in gentle light, looked as serene and untroubled as ever. Yet, as I walked the familiar paths, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, as if the very grounds were mourning the loss of a secret that had finally seen the light. Months later, I learned the unthinkable. Gene Hackman had passed away unexpectedly. The news hit me like a sledgehammer. I couldn't help but wonder if the secrets hidden in those underground corridors had been a silent precursor to his downfall. The timing was too coincidental, the clues too deliberate to dismiss as mere happenstance. Every night since his death, I have wrestled with the burden of what I discovered: the secret tunnels, the hidden documents, and the personal mementos. They tell a story of inner turmoil and despair, a story I can never fully explain nor undo. I am haunted by the realization that the man I once admired was, in truth, fighting a silent battle, a battle that, in the end, proved too much to bear. In the weeks following his death, I revisited the tunnels in my mind, trying to understand the full extent of the mystery I had uncovered. I began cross-referencing dates and details from the documents with public records and interviews. The pieces, though scattered and enigmatic, painted a portrait of a man caught in a web of personal and professional conflicts. There were hints of long-forgotten alliances, betrayals, and secrets kept hidden to preserve an untarnished image. One particular entry in the diary stood out, a passage filled with remorse and regret, detailing a night of bitter confrontation and broken promises. I often wondered if that fateful night had been the catalyst for the events that eventually led to Gene Hackman's undoing. The evidence, though circumstantial, was too compelling to ignore. Beneath the calm, collected exterior lay a turbulent storm, a storm that had finally culminated in his untimely death. In the months since that day, I have been tormented by what I uncovered in those secret tunnels. I feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility, a burden I must carry for the rest of my life. Gene Hackman was not a villain. He was a human being, flawed and vulnerable, whose hidden past may have been as painful as it was dangerous. The discovery of his private struggles has left me questioning the very nature of public perception. How often do we allow the polished image of a celebrity to blind us to the complex, often tragic realities behind the facade? I have since attempted to piece together more of his story, reaching out to old acquaintances and sifting through archived interviews. But the deeper I delve, the more elusive the truth becomes. Every new clue only raises further questions about the man he truly was and about the hidden corridors of our own lives, where secrets lie dormant until fate forces them into the light. I have learned that there is a price to pay for uncovering hidden truths. In my quest for answers, I stumbled upon a narrative that was as terrifying as it was heartbreaking. Gene Hackman's legacy, once defined solely by his cinematic achievements and gracious public persona, now carries the burden of a hidden history, a history filled with regret, pain, and the tragic consequences of secrets kept for far too long. In sharing this account, I do not seek to exploit his memory or sensationalize a tragedy that has deeply affected so many. Instead, I hope it serves as a reminder of the complex interplay between public image and private reality, and of the quiet battles that rage behind closed doors. The tunnels beneath that estate are a symbol, a physical manifestation of the hidden depths within us all. They remind us that behind every smile and every act of kindness, there may lie a story of sorrow and sacrifice that the world will never fully understand. It has been months since I first set foot in those secret tunnels, and yet the experience continues to haunt me. I find myself retracing the steps of that fateful day in my mind, piecing together every detail as if it were a puzzle I might someday solve. The images of faded photographs, cryptic letters, and the cold, damp stone will forever be etched in my memory. In the end, I can only hope that by sharing my experience, I honor the memory of a man whose life was far more complex than the public image allowed. Gene Hackman was, and always will be, a figure of immense talent and kindness. Yet, like all of us, he was haunted by secrets that ultimately proved too heavy a burden to bear.